we're going to take a little bit of a step back to kind of like embrace the data industry as it is. We're going to try to understand where we are, how we got here, and maybe even a little bit of where we might go next. Because as Alex said, you might have noticed that artificial intelligence has become reasonably important to quite a lot of people over the last 3, 4, 5 years. And so we've got ourselves into a little bit of a pickle that I want to go ahead and unpack. So, as I say, the artificial intelligence and data industry are reasonably peculiar at the moment. But before we get into that, I should probably explain who I am, where I've come from, what is indeed going on. So my name is Mike LG. Mike Legaladec. If you're interested in all of the letters, it's from Guernsey. Don't ask, don't worry about it. Mike LG is totally fine. And I'm the head of engineering at a consultancy in the north of England called Oakland. And we are very specifically a data consultancy. We do, as we have talked about, everything data. So we spend our time doing data platform builds. I spend quite a lot of my time doing artificial intelligence engineering. We do machine learning. We do data engineering. We do all kinds of things that we'll come on to in a second. But my job is principally broken down into 4 big areas. I do day-to-day engineering. I do data platform builds. I do cloud engineering. I work on DevOps to help developers perform their best and at the peak performance that they can get to. I am a reformed data scientist. Before I moved to Oakland, I worked extensively in the data science industry, specifically inside sport. So I've got a lot of experience in machine learning and statistical modeling, as well as dashboarding and MLOps. Dashboarding in particular, I'm particularly keen on as a skill, because presenting your insights to executives in order to be able to make decisions is something I'm really keen on making sure that people can do. Very, very recently, and when I say very recently, I mean over the last 3 years, since GPT-3, large language model engineering has predominantly been my life. I was one of the first people to roll out a production RAG application in a large and complex organization inside the United Kingdom, before we even called it RAG, before it was called Retrieval Augmented Generation, and before there were lovely vector databases that you could just download and do. I was helping a team roll their own and understand how you get large language models to answer questions over data. Since then, I have got more complex and more deep as the models have gotten better and the architectures have gotten better, but we'll go into that. And finally, I do this as well. What you're seeing right now, I spend quite a lot of my time doing what I call engineering advocacy, coming to you, coming to audiences and explaining what it is that is going on inside artificial intelligence, data, and engineering, and how is it important to you? And importantly, what should you as a business do about this landscape that we now live in? For my sins, I have a TikTok channel where I yell about these things into a phone. I do Oakland's YouTube channel as well, so I talk through more complex things in longer form video there, as well as kind of leaning on YouTube Shorts. More recently, we've started to push out tutorials on Oakland's YouTube channel. So if you're interested in how some of these things actually happen, then you can go to the YouTube channel and you can look at me, again, yelling into a microphone, explaining code to you. And finally, I do conferences as well. These things are lovely and these things are important, but what about the organization that I actually work for? Well, we like I say, are Oakland. We are actually a part of a much larger company called Softcat, who supply hardware and technology to lots and lots of people across the industry. And but we specifically, as Oakland, are a data and data engineering consultancy. We are 40 years old. This slide is actually outdated. We're now 42 years old and we have 101 employees, not 75. We are 42 years old, and we base our heritage inside statistical process. There have been several incarnations of Oakland, but they all fundamentally try to answer the same problem, which is how can we improve business processes to make more money and gain more value out of them? We started with Dr. John Oakland doing statistical process control in the late 80s, and then iterated through like management consultancy. And finally, our current form is that we are a data consultancy. We do engineering, data science, data platform builds, artificial intelligence engineering, data strategy, data governance, and data quality, as well as lots and lots of things besides that. So, where the hell are we? What are we even doing in this industry? So, I want to tell you a story. And it's a story of some what I would call speculative engineering. What I want to call people just kind of doing stuff because it seemed fun at the time. So, very, very recently, and by which I mean that like 2019, a paper came out with this novel algorithm in it called a transformer. And what a transformer was basically a really fancy way to get really good at giving machines awareness of context. And it turned out that if you take a transformer, which is this algorithm that helps machines understand context, and you plug it into a neural network that understands a little bit about text, you can make an unbelievably convincing language model. An unbelievably good one. I've been in and around computers for my sins since like the mid 90s. And we in the mid 90s and in the 2000s would talk about the Turing test like it was this holy grail that we could not possibly even imagine we could get to. And the Turing test, if you're not really sure what that is that it was a hypothetical test posed by Alan Turing of Enigma fame, that we would know that artificial intelligence had been gained when you could no longer correctly identify whether you were talking to a computer or whether you were talking to a person. And I'm pretty convinced now that we sailed past the Turing test a very long time ago. If you take average people on the street, if you take my mum, she's a reasonably average person, though she's not on the street very often, but if you take my mum, she's a reasonably non-technologically adept person, and you asked her to figure out whether something came from a large language model or whether it came from a person, I don't think she could reliably do it. We have sailed past this point where machines can now talk to us. You will be, I'm coming in a very roundabout way to something that you will be very familiar with, okay? This is almost obtuse of me to come to it from this angle. What I'm talking about is large language models. I'm talking about artificial intelligence, AI. You will be drowning, and we'll come back to this. You will be drowning in noise about artificial intelligence, whether people are trying to get you to use Claude, or they're telling you that Codex is the best thing, or have you seen the latest GPT model, or oh my goodness, what are we going to do about Mythos? You will be drowning in this stuff. But if we take a step back, it's not actually intuitively obvious why this is your problem. This is an audience of data professionals. I'm not 100% sure what the exact job profile of the audience makeup is, though do feel free to yell in chat as to what your exact job title is. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but it is an audience of data professionals, and we make decisions based on evidence. And somebody in Silicon Valley, these big labs, OpenAI, Anthropic, have made an extremely good language predictor. They've built a machine that can talk to you, which is a monumental achievement. God damn, it's unbelievable that this thing can talk so well. But why on earth has that become our and your problem? Suddenly, data professionals are having to deal with AI. We're all having to deal with artificial intelligence, and it's worth examining. Why is it actually our problem? It turns out it's our problem for this reason. The thing that AI is really, really good at is turning unstructured data into structured data at pace. And I mean this in two separate ways. And I invite you to step back and think this through with me. I mean this in two different ways. If you have lots and lots of unstructured content, so if you are a real estate business, say, and you have millions of documents, you've got leases, you've got valuations, you've got offer memos, you've got tenant profiles, you've got brochures. All of these things are huge, unstructured masses of content. And your business thrives off data. Your business thrives off structured insight. And so what you want to be able to do at pace is turn that unstructured content into data, into evidence that you can make good decisions on top of. You want a machine that can read these documents, these leases, these valuations. You want to be able to read them and hand you back tabular data, hand you back numerical data, hand you back something you can actually base a decision on top of. And this is literally the data world's like most expensive job and one of the oldest. The very word computer, the very actual word, comes from a job that was there in the late 19th century of people who had to take unstructured data and turn it into structured content. So we've got this machine that can turn unstructured data into structured data, which is magnificent. And it's probably something that you've already tried. It's probably something that you've already thought, hey, can I hand these models unstructured data? And this can be even as tedious as like emails, and you want structured data out of them. And even if that structured data is just a summary of what's going on, you have handed it big unstructured content and got data out of it. It's fine at that. It's great. Well done. Everybody goes home happy for jam. However, I invite you to flip that and think about your unstructured demands that your users have every single day, and think of those as the unstructured demands that need turning into structured queries. And this is where large language models really do become our problem. This is where large language models really do become one of the tools in our arsenal that we can use to really leverage evidence and data inside this industry to help us make better business decisions. Because our users every single day have random unstructured demands. I work quite extensively in the transport industry, and people are forever popping up and being like, hey, this dashboard isn't quite good enough. I actually need to know about rolling stock that all has 6 wheels. Or I need to know about trucks that are in Scotland. I need to know about how many drivers are late, but only in the north of England. These are random, ad hoc, unstructured demands that change very, very quickly. And it's not actually possible for us to build traditional data tools quickly enough to service all of these demands. And so what we wind up doing in the traditional world is we wind up building a lot of dashboards, or a lot of machine learning models, or a lot of spreadsheets, or a lot of different web apps that can try to codify and surface how businesses run, and will allow people to have enough evidence to be able to make good decisions off the top of that. However, that's not actually how businesses work. Businesses work on unstructured demands. Businesses work on ad hoc information. And so with a large language model, we can take those random unstructured demands and those crazy unstructured queries that our users have and turn them into structured queries across our data. Now, this relies on a whole load of stuff, but the simplest possible way that you can imagine this is that if you have a database, and we'll come on to this example made real in a second. If you have a database, let's say we have some lovely MySQL database that's got all our business data in it for one reason or another. One of the things that you could do with AI is you could take the unstructured queries of your users and get the AI to turn them into SQL, which will then query the database and give them back the nice answers. That doesn't always work. Maybe we'll come on to why that doesn't always work when we talk about examples in more detail, but that is the sort of like mental model I want you to carry around as to why artificial intelligence in the data industry is our problem. It's because it can do something really cool. It can turn unstructured content into data, but also it can turn the unstructured demands of our users into structured queries that we can execute over the data. This isn't theoretical. This is not something that I'm just like pulling out of the sky and being like, oh man, what is it that you think we could do? Like, let's prognosticate and figure out what we can actually do. I'm going to give you, these are 4 projects I've worked on over the last 3 years. So very, very early on in 2023, using GPT 3.1, I think, and subsequently 3.5. And then it's iterated since then. I built basically a RAG application for a large transport company that sat on top of many, many years of project lessons. They build a lot of capital projects, and they wanted to know, like, from any given capital project, what are the lessons that we've learned from that capital project? They wanted their users to be able to come to this chatbot and to say, hey, I'm going to build a capital project. It will involve these things. It will involve X, Y, and Z. When have we done this before, and what did we learn about it? And that was, for the time, unbelievable, right? For early 2023, it was crazy. Like, people were like, whoa, this is nuts. You can query data with a large language model. But as things have evolved, this has become commoditized, right? Like, lessons learned RAG is something you could just like buy off the shelf. Or if you go into any cloud platform, you can now just one-click deploy a RAG application, which is kind of testament to how quickly this industry is moving. That's something that in 2023 people were like blown away by and taking deep breaths in and going, oh my God, this is crazy, is now just something that it's just a commodity that you can buy off the shelf. We have also built a product classifier. These things don't have to be chatbots, which is something I always tell my clients, that these do not necessarily need to be chatbots. We have a product that works in the background for a company that has a large quantity of products. And one of the main problems that they have is that their salespeople are incredibly enthusiastic and incredibly good at their job, but they don't necessarily write down very well every single time all of the products that they have sold. And so what the job of this agent that sits behind their product taxonomy is basically to take in the description of the product that the salespeople have sold and try and match that back up to the master taxonomy that they actually have, so that if the salesperson comes in and goes, hey, I've sold 4 bags of red sand, we can actually match that back using augmentation from large language models and artificial intelligence. We can match that back to the exact product code that that salesperson has sold. And that's an agentic behind the scenes process that takes away quite a lot of tedious work and turns that unstructured data of random scribblings of product data into a structured taxonomical placement inside their product tree. We've also built things like a feedback auditor. So we have an examination company who examine people. That's very much in the name, but they give out qualifications in an industry. But what we do is we have an assessor for the feedback, and we have artificial intelligence that sits over the feedback that people give and tries to make sure that that feedback is of a good quality and highlights when it isn't. One of the things to stress inside that agentic application is that we're not replacing human action. At no point does the person whose feedback is being assessed get talked to by an AI. We don't have the AI send them an email being like, hey, look, your feedback is of poor quality. What we do is we hand it to the people who would normally audit the feedback and augment their workflow by saying, these are the top 5 pieces of feedback you should look at right now. And those are the ones that you should audit, and those are the people that you should talk to. The biggest and scariest AI application I have rolled out in the last 3 years is very definitely the agentic financial insight piece that I've done for a large infrastructure company. This is very bleeding edge artificial intelligence using open source LangGraph and LangChain and other frameworks, sat over a large quantity of databases and an even larger quantity of tables to help a finance team get answers fast and to help them in their workflow. They spend their entire life working in that realm of unstructured queries. They need to know every single day different things. And so we've augmented this team with an agent that can translate those unstructured queries they have, the ad hoc, random things that they need to know on any given day. Profit and loss in one area. How's this center doing? This individual person, what's their expense lines look like? I've got a question about this particular PO. How can I find all of the details related to this PO? All of those random unstructured queries, we can take and we can turn them into structured queries to augment their workflow. So these things are real. These things are coming. These things have in many senses arrived. They're being built around you. So it's worth understanding what people actually want. When people ask for artificial intelligence, when people ask for AI agents, so they come to you and they say, what is it that we should do about the world of artificial intelligence? Fundamentally, we as data professionals need to go back to our roots. We need to go back to what it is that makes this industry tick, which is extremely simple. It's this. We are an entire industry based on the fact that if people have good evidence for their business decisions, they will make better decisions. And I don't frightfully care how you do that. You can use graphs, you can use Excel, you can use forecasts, you can use machine learning. You could just have the raw numbers written out on a notepad for you. I don't frightfully mind how it goes, but all we fundamentally are doing in this industry is giving business users and the people who hold the purse strings and our stakeholders enough evidence such that they can make better business decisions. It turns out that artificial intelligence is one of the tools that should be in our arsenal to help those business users use evidence to make better decisions. Because as we covered in the first sort of 20 minutes or so of this, AI is really good at taking unstructured stuff and structuring it. What that allows us to do is take unstructured content, turn it into data, and give that to our end users to provide value to their business. This is not, though, the traditional view. This is not the view that if you are in the data industry, your execs will come down to you. This is not what your execs will ask you for. This is not the thing that you're going to wake up one day and find is suddenly your problem in the inbox. No exec ever turned to their data function or the person who's in charge of their data or their evidence or their business forecasting and said, I would like more evidence to exploit, please, to give me more value. Nobody ever did that. That's not how people talk to each other. That's just, I'm passing as a human, and so we'll just give that phraseology a whirl. The way that people do this is that they suddenly see a shiny new toy. You will no doubt have been in this world. You will be drowning in artificial intelligence, and you will be drowning in people going, let's do an AI transformation. So let's breathe in and let's think about the things that you need to consider if you are thinking about doing an AI transformation. And this is what gets us to the peculiar state of AI. The title of this talk is very much representative of the situation we find ourselves in the data industry. Because I'm going to argue for you that AI is just a tool. AI is just something that you can use to make this arrow happen faster. AI, artificial intelligence, large language models are just another thing that you have in your toolbox to help the people who make decisions in your business get to value faster. And yet we are all in the thrall of it. We are all facing up to phrases like this. Let's do an AI transformation. Not since the internet has the tech industry really been seized with such a mania. Not since the late 90s. And I can remember the landscape of the late 90s. If you remember Neopets being launched and eBay and Ask Jeeves and Alta Vista, it was a wild time. It was a great time to have a dial-up connection. But not since then have we been held kind of monomaniacally in the thrall of one technology. Like nobody ever in the late 70s when Lotus 1-2-3 was becoming a thing and Microsoft Excel were cribbing how to do spreadsheets from IBM and Lotus. Nobody was sat around going, well, we need to move our entire business onto spreadsheets, and that's how we must be. And nobody is allowed to write any numbers down on a notepad anymore. They must all be in a spreadsheet. It's been a long time since we've had a mania like the AI mania. So if you've set off on an AI transformation as a business, let's just have a look at how peculiar your life has become. Because you will be familiar if you've set off down an AI transformation with tables like this. I took this screenshot this morning so that I could get you the highest and greatest update of LLM benchmarking. And this is a thing that large language model companies are obsessed by. And this provides a window into how the industry is so peculiar, because Anthropic and OpenAI and Meta and X, Google as well, get in on it. They are obsessed with these benchmarks. They are obsessed with making bigger, hungrier, scarier, more capable models that pass these actual benchmarks. And they give them a score. I don't actually know what this score is. Honestly, I'm gonna level with you guys. I just Googled AI benchmarks and screenshotted the first one that came up. It looked plausible, but I'm actually not interested in these scores because, and this contributes to how peculiar the situation is, these massive companies pour millions of dollars into making these numbers, the 83.85 and the 83.6 and the 79.3 of the top three here. They pour millions of dollars into making these numbers bigger. And yet they don't tell you the key thing, which is, are these models, is implementing AI using Claude Mythos 5 or GPT 5.6 Sol or Opus 4.8, is that actually going to bring value in my business? Fundamentally, you as a data professional shouldn't care about these numbers. What you should care about is how these models are used and what value you can actually bring to the table with these models and what can you actually do with artificial intelligence. That's what we should be focusing on, not making these numbers go up, which is why AI is in such a peculiar place at the moment, because lots and lots of resource is being, you may have noticed that there is a RAM shortage at the moment, as somebody who habitually likes to buy RAM to make my gaming machine better. I'm reasonably miffed about it, that these guys are nicking all the RAM. But and that's in the cause of making these models hungrier and bigger and more expensive and scarier and more capable. But we don't fundamentally answer the question of what are we actually doing with AI? So if you get yourself past the notion that there are models and that there are a notion that they are benchmarked and that these numbers are fine, you will no doubt be presented with a wall of tools. And I'm one of the people in my company as the head of engineering responsible for rolling out artificial intelligence tools to not just my engineers, but also to like the wider audience of non-technical folk inside the organization. And so I'm getting barraged by people who've thought up a new and more interesting thing, allegedly, to do with artificial intelligence. I sit in a particularly exposed desk in the office, right on the end of a row, and every single day somebody comes and asks me, can I use Claude, please? Or can I use Devin? Or have you heard about this thing you're allowed to do with Nemo Claw now? I think we should be able to do that. Can I install that on my machine, please? And all of these things make huge promises, and there are lots and lots of different applications for these tools. And we are getting closer, people, to a good idea by thinking about not just benchmarks and by thinking about not just the raw power of these models, but actually thinking about like, hey, what are we going to do with them? What are we actually employing these models for? By thinking about that rather than thinking about just like how many billions of parameters do we have, or are they all activated at one time, or how much VRAM do I need to run this large language model? I love the smell of burning silicon in the morning. Rather than getting into that like weird nerdy stuff, we can start to get into thinking about like how are we actually using them. It is almost certain, I would lay a substantial quantity of money on the line that it is almost certain that somebody on this call works for a company that has rolled out Microsoft Copilot in one way or another. And Copilot, to me, feels quite desperate sometimes, that it's running around looking for problems to solve. And I think it's doing an okay job. I think it's doing an all right job of solving many of the problems that we have, in the sense that you can connect it to your email, you can connect it to Teams, you can connect it to your calendar, you can get a good sort of global sense of what is going on if you're not technical. But as the more technical of you on the call who have tried to use Copilot to code, you'll find it runs out of beans pretty quickly. At which point you might want to pick up something like Codex or Windsurf or Devin or Lovable if you do web development and don't really want to deal with the nonsense of deploying something. You will be familiar with these coding tools. And so you are starting to go down that road of maturity in the industry of thinking about not just the raw power of the models, but how are we actually going to use them? And it's that fundamental question that we're going to think about in terms of a business context now, because I want to argue something to you that feels like it's quite peculiar, but makes sense to me. And I hope by the end of 10 minutes time or so, it makes sense to you. I want to argue to you that AI is just another tool. Artificial intelligence, large language models inside your business are just another tool in your arsenal, but it's more than everything else. AI is just another tool, but more so. Every single data tool you have, it doesn't matter whether it's Excel or Power BI or Tableau or AWS Machine Learning Studio. I'm sorry, the name of AWS's Machine Learning Studio has just totally run out of my head. I'm so sorry, but AWS do have Machine Learning Studio, and it's a data product that you may have in your business. Or whether you've got Copilot Studio, or whether you've got any data product, lives at the core of three different parts of your business. It is involved in process because it augments some kind of process in your business. If a product is not augmenting a process, it should just go away. If we're not actually helping our executives, helping our stakeholders, helping our business users augment a process or get more evidence to make a business decision, then we may as well all go home. If we're not bringing value to the business that we're actually in, then we shouldn't have this product. Any data product also lives in its own data. And this sounds stupid, but it's really important to say. Any data product is only as good as the data and the evidence that go into it. If you imagine a spreadsheet, which is basically one of the most simple data products that we have, it's only as good as the numbers that are inside it. That spreadsheet can be extremely accurate about the numbers that go into it, but it will be wrong if the incorrect numbers go in. I try and avoid saying the word garbage in, garbage out, because people tend to use that as like a thought terminating cliche. But this really is a case of, if you put rubbish into a process, if you put rubbish into a data product, then the thing that you get out of it is going to inevitably lead you astray. And we also, any data product lives inside technology. Any data product lives inside the technology from which it is built. So Excel has been stable for decades at this point, but Power BI continues to be augmented. If you are a Power BI developer, you will know that it continues to be augmented. Recently, it gained a major boost by being included as part of Fabric. If you are somebody who lives in the Azure and the Microsoft estate, you will have heard the good word about Fabric. And Fabric is now treating as a first-class endpoint Power BI, which is fantastic, right? Because loads and loads of people in the business world use Power BI, and by augmenting it with the frankly unbelievable OneLake technology that Fabric is built on top of. If you ever want to really to lose an evening, if you're interested in like file types and how stuff works and what's actually going on under the hood, take a look into what's going on inside Fabric and how the OneLake technology is actually working, because it's reasonably wild out there as to what's actually going on. But we're not going to digress ourselves into the filthiness of Parquet files. Let's focus. Technology is one of the main pillars that data products live on top of. AI obviously lives at the core of all three, but at the moment we are in a perfect storm. We are in a perfect storm of all three of these things, because artificial intelligence augments processes faster than anything before that has come before, because it's very convincing. Artificial intelligence can be extremely confidently wrong, as you have seen, and it can slip itself into a process and confidently replace parts of it that you never thought could be replaced, or get them wrong. And so you need to be really understanding of the process that you have in order to be able to augment it with AI. One of the first things that I always say when I come to develop artificial intelligence is that I need to sit with you. I need to sit down alongside you and understand in gory detail the process that you are trying to augment. To go back to the finance example, I spent days with the finance team just with a notebook, writing down everything that they did and all the queries that they had, and over days and days and days, because only by truly understanding very deeply the process that you are trying to augment can you actually slip AI into it successfully. You need to deeply understand your data. You need to know that this artificial intelligence can access your data sets faster than you can possibly imagine. And because of its adaptability, because of its ability to take unstructured or malformed data and turn that into structured queries or things that you can pile into a process, it can, if you're not careful, look very convincing, but actually under the hood be incorrect. And so you need to intimately understand the data that you are building, the artificial intelligence process that you are putting in place. You need to intimately understand the data that you're building on top of. One of the other things that I did with the finance team is help them build a reference data set. When we ask this question of the artificial intelligence, what should it answer? And only by having 50 or so reference questions could we stand even a hope of doing like regression testing against any changes. We had to build a custom testing harness for the agent so that we could test it against these questions and get it to be judged as to whether it answered the questions accurately and consistently. And only by embedding that in the pipeline could we then understand whether or not any changes that we made in development actually didn't introduce bugs that we couldn't have possibly have seen. And that comes us on to technology. The technology landscape of artificial intelligence is moving, I'm going to argue, faster than basically any other industry that's come before us. We woke up one morning to Mythos being here, and then by the end of the day, it had been taken away from us by the American security services. We woke up and GPT, Sol, Terra, and Luna were here. New models are coming out every day. New paradigms are coming out every day. I don't know if you guys have tried to get your head into like, what is loop engineering? That's the newest buzzword on the street. How about an ontology? Has anyone come to you yet and gone, can I have an ontology, please, for my business? We move so fast in the artificial intelligence sector that we just need to make sure that we are safe. That technology moves so quickly, and even what would have previously been small changes move the needle really, really far. So when I talk about the need for regression testing and testing accuracy and repeatability, even things like very small model changes. So we bumped our model recently from, I think, GPT 5.3 to 5.4, and that introduced new bugs. New things happened. The model is like fundamentally different. It's not just an incremental change. It changes how the model actually answers the questions. And so you have to go in, you have to go do a bunch of prompt engineering, and you have to change things to make sure that all those tests get passed. The process that you are on top of needs to be well understood. The data needs to be accurate and intimately understood, and you need to have a profound understanding of the technology that you are on top of. These things have always been true in the data industry, but with artificial intelligence, they are more true than they have ever been. And this is a world that is divorced from this one. This world of large and complex British organizations making business decisions is divorced from this world. This is a world of benchmarks. This is a world of big numbers. This is a world of millions of dollars. This thing here is the world of Power BI dashboards and spreadsheets breaking on a Monday morning and people coming down to your office and being angry. These two worlds are quite different. We are taking a tool that has been designed by Silicon Valley people to pass benchmarks and to sell tokens, and we are augmenting it into British businesses, and we are expecting it to bring value. This is not impossible, but we have to be very, very careful. We have to understand process, data, and technology very, very intimately. So what do we do about this? Right? Your job hasn't changed. You are still a data professional. You are still fundamentally, at its core, waking up every day and doing this. At its core, fundamentally, every day, your job is to take evidence, data, and content and exploit it for value. That is what you are doing. However, insight is becoming a commodity. The ability to take content and unstructured rubbish or unstructured queries and turn them into structured queries and get evidence faster, that is becoming a commodity. That is coming out of a large language model. That is something that is just happening now at pace. It is now your job to move that floor. Your job is now to help people make better judgments. Your job is to increase the cognitive floor of your industry. It's to bring it up, to make sure that what people are actually doing is what they're being paid for, which is to use their judgment to make better business decisions. Your job as a data professional in the AI industry in 2026 is to make sure that people aren't wasting their time munging spreadsheets. Is to make sure that people aren't wasting their time drowning in documentation and trying to find the one paragraph that's relevant to them. It's your job to take the best numbers and the best evidence and put it in front of the right people to allow them to do what they're paid for, which is to make judgments on top of the best evidence, to make good calls and to make business decisions to drive value. Artificial intelligence is one more tool in the box. This is what I'm going to finish with you before we take some Q&A. We've just got one more unbelievably good tool in the box, and I want you to treat it like every single tool we've had before. AI projects succeed and they become really load-bearing in a business when they are relieving the cognitive load of humans. I always talk about the cognitive floor, which is in a business. Where is judgment actually being applied? And what I want you to do is to take artificial intelligence and raise that cognitive floor. You're going to help people spend less time doing busy work, doing document munging, doing spreadsheet evaluation, and raise that floor of judgment to help them make better business decisions off the evidence that they have. I'm going to chill out because that's kind of like a 47-minute barnstormer of a presentation, and one I love to give, but it always provokes a whole bunch of questions. Martin has asked about semantics after an ontology, and I think we're talking about semantic models in this case, which are like a precursor to an ontology, and they are a good way to get down and understand how the data in your business is kind of structured together. So one of the really cool things about semantic modeling is that it allows you to build up a picture of how your business operates. And generally, it's like a little bit of a function that you want to hold together with meaning. And you can take your data and you can help the AI understand what's going on by giving it a full semantic model and a full understanding of what's actually going on inside the actual function that you have. Ontology is significantly bigger. So when you get to the idea of an ontology in a semantic model, what you're doing is you're putting together the actual data almost in a sense physically and going, well, this table links to this one, and then this is a many to one join over here, and then these things over here. When you get to an ontology, you're actually like embedding meaning into the functions of your business. So if you are, say, a football team, an ontological model of your football team, can you tell I'm watching England later? But an ontological model of your football team would be like, a football team is made of players, and players play for the football team. Many players can play for one football team. One player can't play for more than one football team. And by creating this big meaning graph of your actual business, you can let AI agents kind of run free over the top of what's going on and allow them to take actions inside your business. This is, I appreciate that in Britain, Palantir is a dirty word, but this is the commercial advantage that companies like Palantir have, is that they're an ontology first data model. And so they were really, really ready for large language models in a way that, say, like Databricks kind of wasn't, although Databricks have done an extremely good job of catching up.
In terms of like, some of us data professionals who have been doing this for ages, building a good, data platform, pipelines, modeling the data and all that. From what you said earlier, now that the AI can read, dirty text or dirty, unstructured, documents and produce insights, are we at the risk of data platforms and data modeling and, knowing how the data should be structured, etc., becoming less important?
I see where you're coming from. I genuinely don't think so. So the if you think about what a large language model is basing its outputs on, so let's pretend for a second that they're good at processing tabular data. That they're not, right? But like, let's pretend for a second that they're good at processing tabular data. And you've spent a whole load of time building this lovely data platform, and it's got pipelines that do amazing delta refreshes, and it's got, really well modeled data inside it. All of that temporal and like metadata that you have wrapped around your data platform all counts towards the insight that a large language model can make. So all of that data modeling, all of that ability to have timely data that isn't like, written, isn't duplicated, all the cleaning that you've done, that all counts towards data quality. That all counts towards the evidence that your business users are going to eventually make. Because a large language model is ultimately just taking the numbers or the data that's put in front of it and making a judgment as to what's the most likely thing that the response should be. It's, at the end of the day, just a really good text predictor. So if you have really well structured, really well understood, really well modeled data, your insights that come off the top of it are going to be way better than they possibly could be if you just kind of left your data alone. Like, if you take the extreme example of your data platform and you just go, oh, okay, well, listen, if you were to be like particularly obtuse to go to the point of being like, look, no, this is all pointless now. All we're going to do is just take any data source, convert it into JSON, and just throw it into this S3 bucket. And then we're going to take a large language model and we're just going to put everything in the S3 bucket in, and we're going to hope for the best. That would be rubbish, right? It would be terrible. It would be obviously stupid. And so what you have done is very valuable, because you have produced a thriving environment where artificial intelligence can take the raw evidence that you have got and curated and turn it into the ad hoc insights that your business users are wanting. And quite a lot of the insights that your business users will want will probably not be fulfilled by AI, right? Like, this isn't replacing your dashboards. No, we don't want to wake up every morning and ask Claude again what the overnight sales figures were. It's fine to still have a dashboard. It's fine to still have a graph. if you know that there are repeatable things that your users just need to know over and over and over, you can keep those. That's not a problem. They're not going away. And in fact, it would be significantly more expensive to ask the damn question every morning because you're just burning tokens and just paying API fees. So you don't need to do that. Your modeling work, your structuring work, that's all been towards this end of being able to draw better evidence over the top. And so by curating your data very well and making sure that it is structured and it is timely and it is accurate, that's not gone away. That's still valuable stuff.
I fully agree, but I think more and more when the business realizes all the questions they could ask that they couldn't ask before or have to wait for like two releases or 4 releases, suddenly it kind of diminishes the data platform and the data modeling and data architecture work that was constantly being done with, quite a significant investment behind it.
Yeah, no, I totally understand where you're coming from. And it depends how agile we're willing to be, right? Like, so, it sounds like we have almost a selling problem on our hands. The investment that we had before to produce these insights is not lost. We've got a data platform now. It's great. Look, you can get these insights off the top of it. We can add a large language model to it and get even more of them. And there's a little bit of storytelling to do. And this is a piece of storytelling that I hit constantly of like, why aren't we just using X? And my response is frequently like, oh, when we started this project 4 months ago, X wasn't available. Like you couldn't do it because it just wasn't available. And so really by viewing large language models as another tool in the arsenal to help your execs understand the data, you can almost sell that as like an additional layer of evidence to get out of. And there must be, there is then potentially a way for you to kind of like come to a compromise and go, well, we could have a DMZ of data, right? Like we could let the large language model realm over this kind of DMZ that is of data that's unreleased or data that hasn't gone through the pipeline or data that is, not we don't have to wait 6 weeks to get this new data set in. But you're hitting a problem that loads of people hit. Like I've talked about this agentic capability over finance that I've built. One of the main pieces of feedback, I've got a little feedback box at the bottom in my web app that says, hey, tell us about this agent. Tell me what you think. The main piece of feedback I get over and over and over is I can't query X data set because it's not here. And the main bottleneck in that organization is getting the data set in. It takes weeks. So you're hitting a problem that is not like everybody feels it. Just before we leave, I'm going to do one final plug. You can find me on LinkedIn. My name on LinkedIn is the same as it is here. I'm Mike LG. I am the only Mike LG. So if you go to LinkedIn and you search for Mike LG, you will find me. That is fine. I have a TikTok channel, as I've talked about. If TikTok is your flavor, I am ML Gonzo on TikTok. If short form brain rot is what you want. And we, as Oakland, have a YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and you search for Oakland data, you will see my face on many, many thumbnails, and you can learn about AI agents, data platforms.